It started as a normal morning. The sun rose quietly over the cities, birds sang, and people moved through their usual routines. Children went to school, workers filled the streets, and millions of screens around the world showed the same everyday noise: news, games, messages, and laughter. Nothing felt strange. No one knew that in a few minutes the entire planet would hold its breath. At exactly 9:17 a.m., every screen on Earth went black. Phones, televisions, computers, everything. Even digital billboards froze mid-advertisement. At first, people thought it was a power cut or an internet crash. But the power was still on. Cars still moved. Lights still glowed. Only the screens were dead. Then one by one they came back to life. Not with sound, not with images, but with 3 glowing symbols. The symbols were bright white, almost too bright to look at, and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. No one could read them. No one had ever seen a language like this before. Then a voice followed. It wasn't in any known language, yet somehow everyone heard it in their own tongue, as if the sound was inside their heads. The voice was deep, calm, and echoing. It said only one thing: "We have returned to correct the mistake." Then silence. All across the world, panic began to spread. News anchors stared at blank teleprompters. Scientists rushed to record the strange signal, trying to decode it. Social media exploded with fear and theories. Some said it was a global hack. Some said it was the start of war. Others whispered the word no one wanted to say: aliens. At first, governments told people to stay calm. But when satellites started going offline one by one, calm was impossible. In space, something enormous appeared, bigger than any human-made object. It moved slowly, blocking out the sun for minutes at a time as it passed over the planet. NASA's cameras caught a blurry shape, a massive dark ship, shaped like a crescent, with a glowing core that pulsed every few seconds. The ship made no sound, no signal, no movement. It just floated there high above the clouds, silent and watching. Within an hour, other countries confirmed similar objects in orbit. There were 5 of them. They hung above Earth like silent moons, and then nothing happened. The ships didn't attack. They didn't speak. They didn't move. They just stayed still and dark for a full 24 hours. In that one day, the world changed. Airports closed. Stock markets crashed. People filled the streets staring up at the sky. Some prayed, some screamed, and some simply waited. Every eye on the planet was looking upward, waiting for the next move. When the night came, the ships began to glow. Slowly, softly. First red, then orange, then a strange, unnatural green. The light spread across the sky, turning the clouds into waves of emerald fire. Birds fell silent. Animals ran wild. People watched in horror and awe as the sky itself seemed to breathe. At that same moment, all power on Earth flickered. Lights dimmed. Engines stopped. For a few seconds, the world went completely dark. And then came the sound. It wasn't loud. It wasn't like thunder. It was more like a deep vibration, felt in the bones rather than the ears. Buildings shook. Windows cracked. Oceans trembled. Every person on Earth heard it and felt it, like the heartbeat of something enormous awakening. Then the ships moved. They didn't fly or drift. They shifted, almost like they were teleporting, appearing in different places in the blink of an eye. One moment they were above New York, the next above Cairo, then over the Indian Ocean. Scientists tried to track them, but no radar could keep up. The ships broke every rule of physics. People began to disappear. Only a few at first: a scientist in Moscow, a pilot in Canada, a boy in Brazil. They simply vanished mid-sentence, their devices left behind. Security cameras showed them turning into light for a split second before fading away completely. Governments went silent. Communication lines dropped. Even world leaders disappeared on live broadcasts. By the next morning, half the satellites in orbit had gone dark. The internet collapsed. Humanity was blind and terrified, and yet through the chaos, one thing became clear. The voice from before, "We have returned to correct the mistake," wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Somewhere deep in the Pacific, a new signal began to rise from the ocean floor. It wasn't human-made. It was ancient. And it was calling back to the ships. The world didn't sleep that night. No one dared. Every person waited, staring into the glowing green sky, wondering if tomorrow would even come. And when the ships finally turned toward Earth, The clouds split apart with a light so bright that day and night became the same. Something was coming. Something older than Earth. And humanity could only watch, as the day everything stopped became the day everything changed. The morning after the ships filled the sky, the world was silent. Cities that were once full of noise and life now sounded empty. Streets were quiet, schools were closed, and the internet was gone. No messages, no news, no updates. Only one question lived in every heart. What happens now? Then at 10:04 a.m., the sky broke again. From behind the clouds, the first alien ship began to descend. It didn't fall fast or make sound. It drifted as if the air itself was carrying it. The black surface of the ship glowed with lines of silver light, moving like veins under its skin. It stopped above New York City, blocking the sun completely. The air went cold. Within the next hour, 4 more ships appeared. One over London, one above Tokyo, another above Cairo, and the last above Rio de Janeiro. Each ship hung over its city like a silent moon. They didn't move. They didn't speak. But they were watching. The world's armies prepared for the worst. Fighter jets circled the skies. Tanks rolled into the streets, and submarines waited below the oceans. Every major power stood ready to fight, but no one dared to shoot first. Then something strange began to happen. Every electronic device, from phones to radios to traffic lights, started showing the same moving pattern. The 3 glowing symbols from before. But this time the symbols moved faster, spinning and flashing. People felt dizzy just looking at them. Some fainted. Others said they could hear the symbols inside their minds, whispering softly. "We come to correct the mistake." The same message, and again, but now the voice was gentler, almost sad. People around the world began to feel things that weren't theirs. Memories that didn't belong to them. Some remembered oceans with 2 moons. Others saw cities that didn't exist. Scientists called it shared hallucination, but deep down they knew it was something else. A man in Brazil started speaking a strange language, one no human had ever heard. A child in Tokyo drew maps of cities that matched the positions of the alien ships perfectly. Panic spread. Governments tried to send warning messages, but every attempt failed. The ships jammed all radio signals. Then the ships began to glow again, bright green light flooding the skies. From each ship's center, thin beams of light stretched toward the ground like pillars connecting heaven and earth. When the light touched the ground, it didn't burn or destroy anything. Instead, it formed shapes, strange machines, almost alive. They built themselves from air, metal, dust, and electricity. They looked like towers, twisting and growing upward, as if Earth itself was feeding them. People ran. Soldiers fired, but the bullets passed right through the towers, as if they were made of mist. Within minutes, the first tower stood taller than any building on Earth. All 5 cities had them now, 5 living machines, reaching toward the ships above. Inside one of those cities, Dr. Ilara Singh, a scientist working in London, watched everything through a broken lab window. She noticed something odd. The ships were not scanning Earth's weapons or energy. They were scanning human minds. She recorded the readings. Every few seconds, the ships sent invisible waves across the planet, waves that matched human brain frequencies. It was like they were reading every thought on Earth, and then one word appeared on her computer screen, even though it was disconnected from the network: awakening. All around the world, people began to collapse. Not dead, not hurt, just asleep. Some fell in the streets, some at home, some standing up with eyes still open. Millions fell within minutes. The rest stood frozen, terrified. In the skies, the ships began to hum, a soft, steady vibration. It wasn't random. It was a pattern, like a song. Some people cried when they heard it. Others covered their ears in pain. In New York, a small group of soldiers tried to fire missiles at the ship above. The missiles launched, but they never hit. They froze mid-air, stopped completely, and then turned into ash before touching the ground. That was the moment the world realized these beings weren't here to fight. They were doing something far beyond human understanding. For 3 hours, the ships continued to hum, and the towers pulsed with green light. Then, without warning, everything stopped again. The light faded. The towers turned gray. The ships went silent. But this silence felt different, heavier, final. Then the voice returned, clearer than before. echoing in every corner of the world, inside every living mind. Your time is a circle. The mistake must be erased, and just like that, every clock on Earth stopped. Watches froze, digital timers reset, and even atomic clocks failed. People looked up at the sky, waiting for something to happen. The ships didn't move. They just hovered, silent and glowing. But deep below the streets of Tokyo, in a dark control room filled with old equipment, a small red light suddenly blinked to life, receiving a new signal, one that wasn't alien. Someone or something was answering back, and that was the moment the invasion truly began. The world was no longer the same. Time had stopped once, and then started again, but slower, heavier, like the air itself had changed. The 5 alien ships still hovered above the cities. The green light was gone now, replaced by a dull, dim glow like dying stars. People came out of hiding, afraid to speak, afraid to move too quickly. Every news station that still worked showed the same picture. 5 dark ships, silent, unmoving, but always watching. No one knew what they wanted. No one dared to guess. In London, Dr. Ilara Singh hadn't slept in 2 days. Her lab was half destroyed, wires hanging from the ceiling, computers flickering with broken screens. She kept replaying the recordings she made of the alien signals. Every time she listened, she felt something strange, like the sound was alive, like it was listening back. Then suddenly her equipment beeped. A message had appeared again, in that strange, glowing alien text, but this time her computer began translating it, one line at a time. The symbols formed words, clear and simple. We are the Varnok. We come to correct the mistake. The experiment must end. Ilara froze. The Varnok. That was their name. She quickly sent the message to the few scientists who were still connected across different countries. Most of them thought it was fake, until the same message appeared on their screens too. At the same time, across the world, strange things began happening. Animals started acting differently. Birds flying in perfect circles, whales gathering near the surface of the ocean, dogs and cats staring at the sky, silent and still. Even plants began to react, trees bending slightly toward the direction of the alien ships. It was as if every living thing on Earth could hear something humans couldn't. The United Nations tried to contact the ships through radio and light signals. No answer. Then, on the 3rd day, the ships replied but not through sound. They replied through dreams. Millions of people around the world had the same dream that night. A sky full of stars, a blue planet, but not Earth. Tall, thin figures walking under 2 suns, and a voice that whispered, soft and sad, "You were never meant to be." When people woke up, they remembered every detail. The dream was too real to forget. The same dream shared by so many became the biggest mystery in history. Ilara started to understand something terrible. The Varnok were not here to destroy Earth. They were here because they believed humanity itself was a mistake, an accident that never should have happened. She checked old space records, data from telescopes, signals from deep space, and then she found something unbelievable. Almost 12,000 years ago, before human history began, Earth had received a signal, a faint pulse from deep space, one that scientists had ignored because they thought it was natural radiation. But it wasn't. It was the same pattern the Varnok used now. The same symbols. That meant the Varnok had been here before. Long before humans. Ilara's hands trembled. She realized what their message really meant. We have returned. Returned to what? Returned to finish what they started. Around the world, fear turned into chaos. People demanded answers from their leaders, but most leaders were gone, missing, hiding, or simply silent. The remaining armies prepared for the worst, even though everyone knew weapons would not work. Then at noon, the towers that the aliens had built in the 5 cities began to shine again. This time not green, but blue like frozen lightning. The towers hummed softly, and the ships above them moved for the first time in days. They began sending beams of light down to the towers, like communication lines. And when they did, human voices started echoing from the towers, the voices of the missing people. Children called for their parents. Soldiers screamed. Scientists begged for help. Their voices overlapped, twisted and changed, until they no longer sounded human. Ilara listened through her radio receiver, tears in her eyes. These were people who had vanished days ago, now trapped inside something beyond understanding. The towers weren't machines. They were recorders. They were copying human consciousness. The Varnock weren't just here to erase humanity. They were here to study it first. And then came the message again, not from the ships this time, but from the towers themselves. A deep mechanical sound that spoke in broken English. Human pattern detected. Correction in progress. Every person within 5 kilometers of a tower fell to the ground, not dead but empty. Their eyes open, their bodies still. Their memories gone. Ilara watched from a distance as the city around her went silent. Cars stopped. People froze mid-step. London, one of the loudest cities on Earth, became quiet as a grave. She sent a message to whoever might still be listening. They're not killing us. They're rewriting us. But before she could finish the transmission, her equipment shut down. The power died again. In the sky above, the Varnock ships started to rise, slowly drifting back into the clouds. The blue light faded, and the world went dark once more. No one knew if they had finished their correction, or if this was only the beginning. Then, through the static of every remaining radio on Earth, one final line came through, a voice calm and cold, almost human. The mistake will be undone. Phase 2 begins at dawn. The world woke up to fear. The sky was grey, the air was heavy, and for the first time in history, every nation had only one enemy, the Varnock. It had been 12 hours since the voice said, Phase 2 begins at dawn. No one knew what that meant, but everyone could feel it. Something was coming. In every city under the alien ships, strange blue fogs hung in the air. The towers built by the Varnock no longer glowed, but they pulsed slowly like they were breathing. People who got too close to them felt dizzy. Some started to forget things, their names, their families, their lives. Across the world, chaos grew. Governments fell apart. Armies stopped listening to orders. Power plants shut down. Whole countries went dark. Yet even in the middle of the panic, a small group of people refused to give up. Dr. Ilara Singh, now hiding in an underground military base in Iceland, worked with a few remaining scientists and soldiers from different countries. They called themselves the Last Response Team, the final line of defense for humanity. They had one mission: find a way to fight back. Ilara had discovered something in her data, a strange pattern hidden in the alien signals. Every few hours, when the ships sent their waves across Earth, there was a tiny break, a single second of silence. That second could be a weakness, a window. If we can send a counter-signal in that gap, she explained, maybe we can interrupt whatever they're doing to us. The soldiers didn't understand all the science, but they trusted her. Hope was all they had left. Meanwhile, in the skies above, the Varnock ships began to move again. Slowly they spread apart, forming a perfect circle around the planet. From space, they looked like 5 glowing points, surrounding Earth like a cage. Every few minutes, beams of blue light shot between them, a network, like a giant web of energy. Ilara watched the readings and realized the truth. They're building a field, she whispered. Something that covers the whole planet. What kind of field? One soldier asked. Ilara's voice trembled. One that rewrites everything inside it. She believed the Varnock were preparing to reset Earth, to erase human history completely. That night, the Last Response Team launched Operation Echo. Their plan was simple but dangerous: send a strong electromagnetic pulse into the alien signal at the exact moment of silence, and hope it would break their control. Around the world, the few remaining satellites were aligned to support the signal. Generators powered up. The countdown began. 5 minutes to go. Then suddenly one of the soldiers shouted, "Look at the sky!" Outside the base, the northern lights had changed color. Instead of green, they glowed deep blue, the same color as the Varnock towers. The light stretched across the entire horizon, moving like rivers in the air. And then came the whisper. Everyone in the base froze. The voice wasn't coming from speakers or radios. It was inside their heads. "You cannot correct the correction." Ilara fell to her knees. Blood ran from her nose. "They know," she gasped. "They're inside our signal." Before anyone could react, one of the soldiers began to scream. He clutched his head and collapsed, shaking violently. His eyes turned completely white. One by one, others started to fall too. The Varnock were fighting back, through thought, through sound, through the very data Ilara was using, but she refused to stop. With trembling hands, she pressed the final key. "Send it now," she shouted. The base lights flickered as the signal launched into the sky, a wave of human resistance spreading across the planet. A scream of defiance sent into the void. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, the ships reacted. They began to spin. Their blue light flickered. The towers on the ground stopped pulsing. Across the globe, people woke from their trance. Memories returned. The fog disappeared. It worked. For the first time, humanity had hurt the Varnock. Ilara smiled through tears. "We did it." But her smile faded when she saw the new readings. The alien ships were not falling. They were adapting. The Varnock changed their frequency, higher, stronger. The towers started glowing again, this time bright white. The ground shook. Buildings cracked. And then the unthinkable happened. The 5 ships combined their power. A single beam of light shot down from the sky and struck the Atlantic Ocean. The explosion was silent, but the shockwave was massive. Waves hundreds of meters tall spread in every direction. Ilara's base trembled. The soldiers grabbed onto anything they could. On the monitors, the ocean was glowing white, boiling. What did they do? One soldier shouted. Ilara stared at the data in disbelief. "They're not attacking us," she said slowly. "They're changing the planet." She watched as the oceans began to shift color, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The Varnock were rewriting the very structure of Earth. Water, air, gravity itself. The human signal had only made them stronger. The voice returned once again, calm, emotionless and final. Resistance observed. Correction accelerated. Ilara knew they were running out of time. She quickly sent a short transmission into deep space, the same channel the Varnock had used days ago. Her message was simple. "If anyone hears this, we need help." For a long moment there was only static. Then faintly a reply came back, a voice unlike any she had heard before. It wasn't human, but it wasn't Varnock either. "We hear you, child of dust. Hold on." The transmission ended. Ilara looked up at the sky, trembling. The Varnock ships were rising higher, glowing brighter. The next phase had begun, and somewhere beyond the stars something had heard her call. The next morning the world stood on the edge of silence. The alien ships had stopped moving. The 5 giant towers on Earth glowed white, reaching into the sky like frozen lightning. The oceans shimmered faintly under the pale sun, still glowing from the strange energy that had struck them. For the first time since the invasion began, the world was completely quiet. No birds, no wind, no engines. Even the waves seemed to stop. Dr. Ilara Singh sat inside the dark control room of the Iceland base. Her hands trembled as she watched the readings on her cracked screen. The Varnock energy field had spread across the entire planet, according to her calculations. Humanity had less than 6 hours before the correction completed, but she wasn't alone anymore. The mysterious voice from space, the one that had answered her call, had returned. Every few minutes the base radio flickered with a faint signal, just strong enough to hear. "We are coming. Hold the line." No one knew who they were. Not human, not Varnock, something else. Ilara didn't care. Hope was hope, and she needed it. Outside, snow began to fall. But it wasn't normal snow. The flakes glowed faintly blue as they touched the ground, leaving trails of light. The world was becoming something new, something not meant for humans. Suddenly, the alarms in the base went off. One of the soldiers shouted, "Doctor, look!" On the main monitor, the 5 alien ships began to move again. But this time they were rising. Slowly they lifted higher and higher into the sky, away from the Earth. Their towers on the ground cracked, breaking apart like ice. The lights faded. "What are they doing?" a soldier whispered. Ilara stared, her heart pounding. "They're leaving." No one spoke. Everyone just watched. The ships climbed through the clouds, glowing brighter as they rose. Then one by one they stopped, suspended above the atmosphere. The blue fog vanished. The towers melted into dust. For a moment the Earth looked normal again. The air cleared. The sunlight felt warm. People came out of hiding, staring up in disbelief. Cities damaged by the alien energy were still standing. The oceans calmed. The sky turned a perfect shade of blue. It was as if nothing had happened, but something had happened, and something invisible. Across the planet, technology began to reboot by itself. Satellites came back online. Radios worked again. Even power returned to dark cities. The internet flickered to life, full of confused messages. Are they gone? What happened? Did we win? No one had an answer. In the base, Ilara slowly stood and whispered, "It's over." "They're gone." The soldier beside her smiled weakly. Maybe they realized we weren't the mistake. But before Ilara could respond, the lights in the room flickered again. The screens flashed white, and a single message appeared, written in the same glowing symbols the Varnock had used before. Phase complete. Her heart froze all over the world. The same message appeared, on phones, billboards, computers, and even carved into the surface of the desert sands. Then came the strange part. People began to vanish. Not everyone, not instantly, but randomly. A man crossing a street, a pilot mid-flight, a child playing in a park. They would shimmer like light, their bodies fading away in seconds. No sound, no trace, just gone. In some cities, hundreds disappeared at once. In others, no one did. The pattern made no sense. Scientists tried to find logic, but there was none. It was like the universe was choosing who stayed and who didn't. Ilara watched helplessly as the names of her team members disappeared from the base's tracker, one after another. She looked around the room and half her team was gone. Empty chairs, silent radios. She screamed into the microphone, "Whoever you are, the ones who answered me, do something." Static filled the air for a moment. Then the voice came back, clearer this time. "They are not destroying. They are removing." "Removing what?" she cried. "The wrong timeline." Lara froze. The words echoed in her mind like thunder. The wrong timeline. The Varnock weren't erasing people. They were erasing versions of reality itself. Everything they thought was life, history, memory, human civilization, could just be one of many failed experiments. The voice spoke again. "You must survive the reset. Hold to the true pattern." Then the signal vanished completely. Ilara looked at the screen one last time. The ships were now tiny points of light, almost invisible in the upper atmosphere. For a second, she thought she saw them shimmer. And then they were gone, just gone, no explosion. No debris, no sound. The sky was empty. Across the world, people cheered, cried, and fell to their knees. Humanity had survived. The invaders had vanished. But deep inside the radio static that remained, hidden beneath normal frequencies, one whisper continued to play, too quiet for most to hear. Phase 1 complete. Ilara heard it, and she knew this wasn't victory. It was something else. The Varnock hadn't been defeated. They had simply finished what they came to do. As night fell, the stars above the world seemed to shift slightly, forming new patterns never seen before. And in the silence that followed, humanity celebrated, without realizing that reality itself had already begun to change. For 3 days after the Varnock ships vanished, the world was quiet. Too quiet. There were no more strange lights, no missing people, no alien sounds. The skies were clear, the oceans calm, and the towers had turned to dust. To most of humanity, it looked like peace. But to Dr. Ilara Singh, it felt like something was wrong, terribly wrong. She had seen too much to believe it was over. The phrase Phase 1 complete still echoed in her mind like a heartbeat she couldn't ignore. Inside the ruined Iceland base, Ilara worked alone. The rest of her team was gone, vanished like half the world's population. Every few minutes she heard her own voice echoing faintly through empty halls, a trick her tired mind played on her. She looked at the data from her scanners. Nothing looked the same. The stars in the night sky had shifted. Their positions were off, just a few degrees. But enough for any scientist to know something impossible had happened. Earth wasn't where it used to be. According to her calculations, the planet had moved slightly, not through space, but through time itself. Ilara stared at her readings in disbelief. "They didn't invade us," she whispered. "They rewrote us." Around the world, small things began to change. Cities were still there, but their histories weren't. People remembered different events. Famous buildings had different names. Maps looked slightly different. And the strangest thing of all, nobody else noticed. Except Ilara. She was the only one who remembered the towers, the ships, the vanishing. When she asked others about it, they just stared blankly, confused. Some laughed and said she needed rest. Others said aliens had never come at all. It was as if the invasion had been erased from reality itself. She turned on her radio again, scanning frequencies. hoping to find the mysterious voice that had once replied to her message. For hours there was only static. Then faintly it came back. "Child of dust. You survived the reset." Her hands shook. "Who are you?" she whispered. "We are what remains of the first creation, the ones they erased before you." Ilara froze. "You mean humans weren't the first?" "No," the voice said gently. "The Varnock build, test, and correct. You are the sixth version of this world." Her breath caught in her throat. "Sixth version? Each time they fix what they call a mistake. But every version learns, adapts. You are not the first to resist, but you are the first to survive their vanishing." Ilara sat back, numb. The pieces began to fit together. The aliens hadn't lost. They had finished their experiment. They had changed Earth into something new, something closer to their plan. She whispered, "Then, what am I now?" The voice hesitated. "You are human, but not as before. You carry their code now, but part Varnock, part what came before. That is why you remember. Outside the snow stopped falling. The air grew still. The stars above shimmered faintly, forming new constellations that no astronomer had ever recorded. And then the voice said one last thing. They will return when the correction is complete. When the seventh world is ready." The signal ended. Ilara sat alone in the silence, her heart pounding. The seventh world. The final correction. She opened her notebook and wrote down everything, every word, every number, every shift in the stars. If she was the only one who remembered, she had to leave a record. Someone someday would need to know. Weeks passed. Life on Earth returned to normal. People worked, laughed, rebuilt, and moved on. News reports talked about a global data failure, not aliens. History rewrote itself. Humanity forgot, but Ilara couldn't forget. Every night she stared at the sky and noticed something small. The stars were still moving. Slowly, carefully, shifting into new positions, forming a shape she almost recognized. A symbol. The same three glowing symbols that had appeared on every screen the day the invasion began. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. She turned on her radio one last time, her voice breaking as she spoke. "If anyone can hear this, remember, they didn't fail. They completed something we still don't understand." Static, silence. Then a faint echo of her own words came back, but not in her voice. "We remember." Ilara froze. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't the Varnock either. It was something new, calm, balanced, and strangely familiar. Outside her window, a single beam of light shot down from the stars, hitting the ocean far away. The glow spread across the horizon, soft, beautiful, and endless. Ilara watched it for a long time. She didn't feel fear anymore. Just a strange peace. Maybe humanity hadn't been destroyed after all. Maybe it had been changed, prepared for something greater. Her last words were written in her notebook before she finally closed her eyes. The day the aliens tried to invade Earth, they vanished forever. But maybe they didn't leave. Maybe they became part of us. And maybe the real invasion was never about war. It was about evolution. The wind outside whispered softly, carrying her words into the dark. The stars above shifted once more, forming a perfect circle of light. And then, for a moment, Earth felt like it was holding its breath again, the same way it did on the day everything stopped.